Leading in crisis, being resilient and building resilience. Let's explore options to build resilience through strategic decision making. Strategic decision making for efficiency or innovation. Organizations are often bad at innovation because leaders tend to prefer technical cause and effect type decision making, which favors efficiency and control over innovation, ideas, and change. The latter require a more adaptive mindset, more comfort with ambiguity. And here's the problem. The danger of focusing on efficiency alone is the danger of irrelevance, especially in times of crisis. When we face chaos, radical innovation may be what's needed to create new relevance. Of course, the word radical itself conjures up fear and uncertainty. We can't manage radical. We think radical is too risky. And organizations like to manage risk. Resilience in the face of volatility and chaos is actually about variety. Having lots of options. In the face of ambiguity, some of those options may need to be very different, radically so, than the current status quo. The idea that radical innovation is too risky is something we need to explore. Radical innovation does not necessarily mean too high a risk, too long or uncertain a payback, or too much cash. The way we look for the jewels, those options that allow us to move forward in a relevant way, that are radically different, the way we move forward is we pilot options. We pilot because piloting is a safe space, and we look for those options in our innovation pipeline that are not too risky. How do we know? Well, an option is radically innovative if it satisfies any of the following criteria. It has the power to change customer expectations. It brings us back to a new relevance. It has the power to change the industry economics because the old economy doesn't apply the way it did. Or it has the power to change the basis of competition because the old order is no longer relevant. How do we shift our decision-making process? At the leadership level, in terms of culture, it is critical to create a culture, says Hamill, that values courage and creativity and imagination to build resilience into our strategic decision-making. Let's explore a model by David Snowden and Mary Boone, Harvard Business Review 2007, a leader's framework for decision-making. Snowden and Boone suggest that decision-making depends on the nature of the operating environment and frame the operating environment in terms of two elements, knowns and unknowns. A simple operating environment consists of known knowns. It may become more complicated when there are known unknowns. When the operating environment has unknown unknowns, it is complex. And in a crisis, it's chaotic. It's just unknowable. Now let's think about decision-making in terms of these four operating environments. Simple and complicated, there are some knowns. Complex and chaotic, there are known knowns. It's about unknowns and unknowables. In a simple and complicated operating environment, the decision-making style can be technical. There is some order, and therefore observable cause and effect relationships apply. We can determine right answers from the facts and drive action through technical expertise. But in an environment which is complex or chaotic, it's all about unknowns and unknowables. Technical decision-making doesn't work because fundamentally disorder prevails. In such an environment, there's no clear link between cause and effect. We need to explore and understand emerging patterns to determine the way forward. And agility is required. There's a paradox in a way between when to be patient and when to take action. Let's take Snowden and Boone's decision-making model and juxtapose it with Arie de Geer's model, which is exploring sustainability. Arie de Geer, The Living Company, 1997, is his work based on his time with Royal Dutch Shell, suggests that a sustainable organization needs to have these four elements in place. It needs to have financial prudence, financial conservatism. It needs to have a clear understanding of identity, purpose, meaning, values. And it needs to have a tolerance for newness, and a sensitivity to the changing world. The first two of these elements, financial conservatism, deep understanding of identity, these are fundamentals that need to be in place regardless, and particularly will prevail in a stable operating environment, which consists of some knowns. But in a world that is more adaptive, particularly if it's complex or chaotic, and primarily unknowns, the other two elements come into the fore, and that is a tolerance for newness and a sensitivity for change in the operating environment. How does this influence your decision making? Says Paul Schumacher and his colleagues in their Harvard Business Review article in 2013, we need to look for the weak signals, amplify possibilities, probe and clarify. They go further. Reflect for yourself and for your team to what extent, when you are facing crisis in an adaptive operating environment, are you applying these 6 elements in your leadership decision making? Anticipate, challenge, interpret, decide, align, and above all, learn, because the world keeps on changing. I'd like you to think about these 2 models, Snowden and Boone and Arie de Geers, in the context of Diane Kutu's model of how to build resilience. Kutu refers to 3 fundamental elements: facing reality, anchoring in meaning, and improvising. In strategic decision making, we need to consider each of these elements too in order to stay relevant and resilient. Thank you. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Leading in Crisis, Being Resilient, and Building Resilience in Others. If you'd like to explore any of these concepts in a more practical and personal way, either for yourself or for your organization, please do contact us. We'd love to hear from you. We have a range of services, one-on-one and for teams. Strategic Leadership Sounding Board, Thinking Partner Coaching, Strategy and Leadership Development Interventions. Looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you watching the next episode. Thank you.